He left his wedding to go sign a deal, but instead, he signed his death. A story written by Christy Midnight Tales. Precious and David's wedding was everything she prayed for. The hall was beautifully decorated, the music was perfect, and everyone could feel the happiness radiating between them. It was one of those weddings that made people believe in love again. David couldn't stop smiling. He was proud of the woman he had married. Precious looked stunning in her gown, glowing with the kind of joy only love could give. Everything felt right, like the beginning of forever. After the church service, they moved to the reception ground. Friends, family, and well-wishers filled the hall. Laughter, dancing, and camera flashes filled the air. David was everywhere, taking pictures, greeting guests, and thanking everyone who came. At some point, Precious sat down quietly, just watching him. She couldn't believe that after years of waiting and prayers, she finally got married to her best friend. David wasn't perfect, but she loved him deeply. Even when he lost money in a few failed businesses, she stayed. Now, watching him smile so freely, she felt it was all worth it. It was almost evening when David's phone rang. Precious noticed how his expression changed immediately after he checked the caller ID. He excused himself, walked outside, and spent almost 10 minutes on the call. When he returned, his face had that serious, calculating look she hadn't seen all day. He leaned close to her and whispered, "Babe, there's something urgent. I need to go sign a deal tonight." Precious frowned. "Tonight? David, it's our wedding day. Can't it wait till tomorrow?" He shook his head. "This one can't wait. The man said he's flying out of the country tomorrow morning. It's a big opportunity for us, baby, and I wouldn't want to miss it." She stared at him, disappointed. "But we just got married, David. Just one night, can't you let business rest?" He smiled faintly, holding her hands. "I'll be back before you wake up tomorrow. Just trust me, okay?" Precious wanted to insist, but she also knew how much this meant to him. David had been struggling to land a solid business connection for years. Maybe this was his breakthrough. So she forced a smile and nodded. "Okay, just be careful." He kissed her forehead, then turned to wave at their friends who were still dancing. Within minutes, he was gone. As the music continued and people laughed around her, Precious felt an unusual emptiness. She couldn't explain it, like something in her spirit was unsettled. When guests began to leave, she smiled through her tiredness, hugged everyone goodbye, and went up to their suite to rest. It was strange lying on the bed alone. The room still smelled like him. She scrolled through her phone, replaying clips from the wedding. Her heart warmed at how happy they looked. But after midnight, she started to worry. David hadn't called. She dialed his number. It rang twice, then went off. She tried again, same thing. Maybe he was driving or his battery was low, she thought. By 2 a.m., she was wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The night felt longer than usual. She placed her hand on her belly and smiled faintly. She hadn't told David yet. But she was already pregnant. She planned to surprise him during their honeymoon. She even imagined how excited he would be when she said, "You're going to be a dad." But as dawn approached and her call still didn't go through, the joy in her heart slowly began to fade. The next morning, she called his friend Todd, David's best man. "Have you heard from David? He said he went to sign a deal last night." Todd sounded half asleep. "Sign deal? No, I haven't spoken to him since yesterday. Maybe he went to see one of his business partners." "Don't worry, he'll show up." By evening, she called his parents. They were surprised. "Maybe he's with his friend," his mother said. But deep down, Precious knew David wouldn't disappear on their first night as husband and wife without telling her. That night, she went to the police station and reported him missing. The officers asked her to give them 24 hours. "Maybe he just needed space," one of them said casually. Not understanding the weight of her fear, she went home that night, sat on the couch, and cried. The wedding dress was still hanging in the corner. The house they planned to start their new life in suddenly felt cold. Her phone stayed beside her pillow all night, but it never rang. It had been just 24 hours since the happiest day of her life, yet somehow, everything already felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. By the next morning, Precious could no longer sit still. She went back to the police station, this time with David's parents. They filed an official missing person report, and one of the officers assured her they would start tracing his last known location. They asked her questions: when last she saw him, what he wore, where he said he was going, and whether he mentioned any names. She repeated everything word for word, trying not to break down in front of them. He said he was going to sign a deal, that he would be back in the morning, she said softly. The officer wrote it all down and told her to go home while they checked through surveillance and phone records. Precious returned home with David's parents. The house was quiet, painfully quiet. She kept looking at tear pictures on her phone, her mind replaying the moment he kissed her forehead before leaving. She whispered to herself, "You promised you'd be back." 3 days passed. Still no word from David. His phone remained switched off. Every knock on the door made Precious jump. Every ring from an unknown number made her heart race. Then on the 4th day, a police officer called. "Madam, we found something. Can you come to the station?" She rushed down immediately, barely able to breathe. When she got there, they told her David's phone signal was last traced near a guest house along the outskirts of town, a place called Peacefield. Guest house. She repeated, confused. "David doesn't go to such places." "Are you sure?" The officer nodded. His car was spotted by a fuel attendant nearby that same night. He said the man in black suit stopped to buy fuel before heading into Peacefield Lodge. They drove there together. Precious sat in their back seat, hands trembling, praying silently that he was safe. When they arrived, the manager of the guest house came out nervously. Yes, someone like that came in that night," he said after seeing David's picture. "He checked in around 10 p.m. "Checked in?" Precious repeated. "With who?" The man hesitated. I can't really say. I didn't see anyone else with him. But he never checked out." The officers looked at each other. "Show us the room." They led Precious upstairs to a corner room, room 12. The key turned easily in the lock. When the door opened, everything looked normal. The bed was neatly spread, the air smelled of disinfectant, and the curtains were drawn. There was no trace of struggle. But something about the room made Precious shiver. She felt a strange heaviness, like the air itself was holding secrets. One of the officers opened the bathroom door. "Nothing," he muttered. "It's clean." The manager insisted that no one had entered the room since that night. "We only cleaned it the next morning because the guests didn't come down for breakfast." They collected the manager's statement and took samples from the carpet and the bed. One of the officers noticed that the CCTV system wasn't working. "We've had light issues for weeks," the manager quickly explained. As they left the guest house, Precious sat in the car quietly. Her hands were cold. Her mind was spinning. She didn't know what to believe anymore. When they got home, she broke down completely. She cried until her eyes were swollen, asking God for answers. Days turned into weeks, and still, no trace of David. The police said they were still investigating, but she could tell from their tone that they were losing hope. One evening, Tond, David's best man, came to visit. He hugged her tightly, consoling her. "You have to be strong," he said softly. "David was like a brother to me. I can't believe this is happening." But something about his words didn't sit right with her. He wasn't crying. He wasn't even shaken. And when she mentioned that David's last known location was a guest house, Tom's eyes flickered for a second before he quickly composed himself. "You know David," he said, forcing a smile. "He probably went there to meet that business client he talked about. Let's not assume the worst." Precious nodded, but deep down, she felt a strange suspicion growing. David never hid things from her, and if something went wrong, he would have found a way to reach her. That night, she dreamed of him. In her dream, David was standing outside a dimly lit building. His suit, the same one he wore on their wedding day, was stained. "Don't trust him," he said before fading away. She woke up sweating, heart pounding. Her first thought was Tond. She felt weak, but pushed it aside. Tond is a family friend. He can't be involved in this. The next morning, she visited the guest house again on her own. The manager tried to stop her, but she insisted on seeing the room one last time. When she entered, she stood still for a while, taking in every detail. Then her eyes caught something near the corner of the wall, a tiny brown stain the cleaners must have missed. She bent closer. It looked like dried blood. Her heart sank. She called the police immediately. This time, they sealed the entire room for proper investigation. Something had definitely happened there, but the question remained, where was David? The next few days were filled with tension. The guest house was now officially sealed off, and the police began a deeper investigation. They collected samples from the carpet, the wall, and even the drain in the bathroom. Precious went there again, this time with David's parents. The moment his mother stepped into that room, she broke down completely. She kept repeating, "My son was here. I can feel it." The police later confirmed that the brown stain Precious saw on the wall was blood. And not just any blood, it matched David's type. That was the moment everything changed. The officers called Precious in for another round of questioning. They asked if David had any enemies, anyone who might want to harm him. She thought hard but couldn't recall anyone. David wasn't the type to fight or hold grudges. But when they asked who he went into business with most recently, one name came up, Tond. The police decided to bring him in for questioning. Tond arrived at the station looking calm and collected. When asked if he knew where David went that night, he denied everything. "I don't know about any guest house," he said, leaning back in the chair. "David told me he was going to meet some investor. That's all." "Did he mention the name of the investor?" one of the officers asked. "No, sir. He just said it was urgent." They asked where Tond was that night, and he claimed he was home. But when they asked for proof, a phone call, a message, a witness, he couldn't provide any. Meanwhile, the police quietly requested CCTV footage from nearby fuel stations and shops. 1 week later, a footage surfaced from a small store opposite the guest house. It wasn't very clear, but it showed two men entering the lodge that night. One was clearly David, wearing his black suit. The other wore a dark shirt and cap, and his body size and posture matched Tond. When Precious saw the footage, her whole body froze. "That's him," she whispered. "That's Tond." The police called him back for another interrogation. This time, he looked slightly nervous. "Yes, okay, I remember now," he said after they showed him the clip. "He gave me a ride that night. He dropped me at the junction before going in. I didn't go into the guest house." But the officers pressed further. "So why didn't you tell us this before?" He shrugged. "I didn't think it mattered." His answers were shaky, and the police knew he was hiding something. 2 days later, one of the cleaners from the guest house came forward. She was a middle-aged woman who worked night shifts. Her statement turned the whole case around. "I cleaned that room that morning," she said quietly. "I saw blood under the bed. A lot of it. I wanted to ask questions, but he told me to keep quiet and just clean." "Did you see anyone else that night?" the officer asked. "Yes, there was another man with the guest. He left around midnight. I saw him from the corridor, but I can't remember his face clearly." They showed her several pictures, and she paused when she saw Tond's. "This man. He looks like the one I saw." That was enough for the police to act. They arrested Tond the following morning. When Precious heard, she rushed to the station. Her heart pounding. She couldn't believe her husband's best man, the one who called David brother, could be involved in his death. Tond denied everything, even when they presented the footage and the cleaner's testimony. "You people are making a mistake," he shouted. "I didn't kill anyone." But the police kept him in custody while they continued searching. That same week, they went back to the guest house and decided to dig behind the building where the septic tank was located. The smell coming from that area made one of the officers suspicious. They searched deeper, and what they found made even the officer step back in shock. Inside the tank, wrapped in a nylon sheet, were remnants of a suit, a wristwatch, and a gold chain, all identified as belonging to David. Precious fainted when she heard the news. It was no longer a missing person case. It was murder. When Tond was confronted with the evidence, he broke down. He sat in silence for a long time before tears started rolling down his cheeks. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way," he said softly. The officer leaned forward. "Tell us what happened." He took a deep breath and said, "David got that deal through me. The man was supposed to invest in my business, but he went behind my back and took the contact. That night, he called me, bragging about how lucky he was. I got angry. I told him to wait for me at the guest house after signing the deal. I didn't mean to kill him, I just pushed him. He hit his head on the table and stopped breathing. I called the manager, and we hid the body behind the building till morning. Then I cleaned up and went home." The room fell silent. Precious couldn't hold back her tears. "You killed him. You killed him on our wedding night," she said in disbelief. "Because of business. Indeed, no one is your friend." Tond looked up at her, eyes red. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't." But no amount of apology could bring David back. As he was led away in handcuffs, Precious sat quietly in a corner. Her whole world felt shattered. She was pregnant, widowed, and heartbroken at the same time. And as the police prepared to exhume the remains for proper burial, Precious whispered under her breath, "He said he would be back in the morning." The news of David's death spread like wildfire. Friends, family, and even neighbors who had celebrated their wedding just weeks before couldn't believe it. One moment, they were watching him dance joyfully with his bride, and the next, they were attending his burial. Precious didn't say much during the funeral. She just sat quietly. Every word from the pastor sounded distant. The only thing she could hear clearly was her heartbeat, heavy, broken, and slow. When they lowered his coffin, she placed her hand on her stomach. Her baby kicked at that exact moment, and tears filled her eyes. "He's gone, but a part of him is still here," she whispered. After the burial, everyone returned to their lives, but for Precious, life had stopped. The house felt emptier than ever. His clothes were still in the wardrobe. His cologne still lingered in the air. Every night, she lay on the same bed where she had waited for him, wishing she could wake up from the nightmare. Weeks turned into months. Her baby bump grew, and she tried to stay strong. She refused to move back to her parents' house. "David and I plan to raise our family here," she said. "Even if he's gone, I will stay." At the court, when the verdict was read, Ton looked over at Precious. Their eyes met for a brief second. He tried to say "I'm sorry," but she looked away. There was nothing left to say. When her baby finally arrived, she named him David Jr. He had his father's eyes, the same dimple when he smiled. Holding him for the first time made her cry, not out of pain, but out of love. "You grow up to know your father was a good man," she whispered. "And you'll never make the mistakes he made." Moral lesson: mind those you call your friends. Not everyone smiling at you wants your progress, and always keep your wins to yourself. Friends are not worth it. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more interesting stories like this. See you in my next video. Bye.